Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining this webinar on Power Apps 101, where we hope to give you the groundings of what Power Apps are and what they're all about. I'm one of your hosts today, and my name is Tom Grange. I'm one of the account managers here at m-hance, and I'm joined by my colleague, Rhoddy, who's one of our Power Apps developers here. Rhoddy, if you want to move on to the slide. Next slide again, please, Rhoddy. Now, if we want to talk through today's agenda, there's a few things we're hoping to cover off today to give you a good groundings as to what Power Apps are really all about. So first of all, what we'll be covering are what are Power Apps. We'll then give you an idea of some of the use cases, which hopefully will get your imaginations flowing. We'll talk to you a bit about the different types of Power Apps, because in case you're not aware, there are different types of Power Apps you can create. Talk to you then a little bit about the actual building blocks behind Power Apps and the different ways you can then build the Power Apps. I'll then touch briefly on the different license types you can get to utilize Power Apps before then passing across to my colleague Rhoddy, who will actually talk you through it and show you through a live demo of how Power Apps look and feel. Next slide, please, Rhoddy. So what are Power Apps? Well, Power Apps is a suite of apps, services and connectors and a data platform ultimately that provides you with an opportunity to build custom apps for your business needs. So you as a business user can build quickly a custom business app that allows your data to connect to connect different data sources from around the business. Now you can store those in three core ways. There's an underlying data platform that Microsoft call the Common Data Service. It's online services, and you can also then connect to on-premise data sources as well. So this is not the kind of application that you're limited to which points of data you can connect. As long as you have that data somewhere, you'll have the ability to use that in a Power App type environment. Next slide, please, Rhoddy. So with that in mind, there are really quite an infinite number of use cases for Power Apps. So the chances are, as users in a business, your company will have a whole suite of different tools or forms or challenges that right now you either have quite manual processes for, or quite kind of admin heavy or paper heavy processes, or perhaps processes that don't even exist at all. So if you look at some of the use cases that we've given here as examples, it could be simple things such as new starter forms. It could be certain key kind of HR tools or tracking methods. It could be a portal for your customer. It could be, depending on your business nature, a way of tracking warranty claims or sharing your business catalog for your customers, or even just sharing a suite of information that natively any kind of system doesn't share or make available for you. So there really are infinite cases here that you could really think about and then adopt Power Apps in the business to deliver. So if there's one key message I'd like you to leave with today, it's look at what you do in your business, what seems quite manual or unintegrated, and what in the 21st century, where we've effectively got supercomputers in our hands, what should be easier and simpler and or digital, because that's really what Power Apps has been created for. Next slide, please, Rhoddy. So ultimately, there are three types of Power Apps that you can effectively build. So the first type is a Power App portal, and this is where you can give either internal or external users secure access to your data in any number of ways. So again, if you hold customer information, if you hold product information, if you hold sensitive information, if you have any level of information or you want to capture a number of bits of information from your customer base or internal users, you can create a Power App portal. So again, I'm sure many of you can already think of an infinite number of examples from that. So whether that's an intranet or whether that's a customer portal, there's a whole range of things you can build around Power App portals, and that can ultimately be part of your native website if you want it. We've then got model-driven apps. Now, this is where we adopt the Microsoft Common Data Service methodology. So really, if you are using certain business processes within a sort of Dynamics 365 type environment, for example, at the moment, you can effectively kickstart your Power App by using the data that's already on the Common Data Service. So for example, if you are a Dynamics 365 sales user, which is Microsoft's latest CRM solution, your data on your customers or your accounts or your opportunities or even quotes are already held on the Common Data Service. So you can create an app that links to any number of those data sources to make that available for any number of reasons. On the flip side, for example, that doesn't limit you if you're not a Dynamics user at the moment, because you also have then what's known as Canvas apps. Now, these are completely tailor-made, highly customizable apps that you can create for any purpose you see fit, to a level of absolute pixel perfect detail and control. So again, you have a completely blank slate with a Canvas app. It's what do you want it to do? How do you want it to perform? Where do you want to deploy it? So is it going to be desktop? Is it going to be mobile? Is it going to be a mix of both? In terms of data sources, do you want to connect to just one data source, or actually do you want to connect to a few data sources for different reasons and bring that data together for any reason you can think of? So really, across these three types of apps, you should be able to create whatever business need or process you can think of in a Power App environment. Next slide, please, Rhoddy. And finally, we have these three fundamental Power Apps building blocks, which is what you'd come across when trying to create a Power App. The first one of which is the Power Apps homepage, and this is when you'll decide which type of Power App that we've just covered you'd like to start with building. And Microsoft do actually then give you a few template examples to get you up and running, or at least allow you to sort of have a play around and look at how they've built an application, which can give you a bit of a kickstart, potentially creating your own. You can also then from there select a different data source. So if you can just see in on the right hand example, you've got links to things like a Sharepoint data point, an Excel Online data point, a SQL Server, or the Common Data Service. So there's also a higher range of that, but it gives you an idea of just where and how you can connect a Power App to the different data sources available for you. We then have the Power App Studio, and this is where you'd create the Power App to do or behave how you'd like it to. And then we'd have Power Apps Mobile, which is how you then create an app specifically for a mobile application. So in terms of that studio, the design is similar whether you're creating it specifically for a mobile or for a desktop. And actually, if you're creating it for a mobile, it is going to be more refined for a mobile type resolution. But yeah, that's the beauty of Power Apps ultimately, is it can be accessed from a desktop environment, it can be accessed via a website, or it can be accessed natively on your mobile phone as well. Next slide, please, Rhoddy. So then finally, in terms of licensing, there's two key types of licenses available for you. One is the per app plan. Now, this is where as a business, you'd generally, per user, you'd only want to have a user access 2 apps and 1 portal maximum simultaneously. Otherwise, there is a per user plan that would allow a user to have and create unlimited number of different apps. And the key differentiator between those two is not just the limit of apps or portals per user a business can have. The key consideration is the use of the Common Data Service and the space each license type provides to you. Now, what I mean by that is if you look at the third row down, you'll see under the Use Common Data Service tab, you've got database capacities. And you'll see in the case of the per user plan, there is a significantly higher database capacity and file capacity than the per app plan. So what we've seen in a number of cases where we've created applications for customers is there's often the benefit in having 1 or 2 users on the per user plan, so giving the initial database a much larger initial capacity. And then for each user, those databases can be sort of up effectively. So we've yet to see a case where an entire organization would fully need a per user plan. Of course, as a business would continue to Power App for that to happen. But initially, you would generally expect, depending on the type of application, you could get away with a per app plan for all users. We would always recommend starting with at least 1 per user plan, or 1 user on a per user plan to give you that initial database size. But you can see from a pricing perspective, it is priced very competitively with the per app plan at £7.50 per user per month and the per user plan at £30.20 per user per month. So that gives you a good kind of overview and background as to the nature of Power Apps, what they can be used for, and the underlying framework and methodology you can deploy with it. So what I'll do now is pass across to my colleague Rhoddy to give you a live demonstration.
Hello, good morning. Just going to quickly jump out of the Power Apps PowerPoint presentation and jump into Power Apps. So I'm just going to walk you through how I would build a kind of quick, simple Canvas app, essentially to accommodate leave requests for a system. It's going to be built on the Common Data Service model. So you can see I'm in this makepowerapps.com web page, and this is where essentially I can start to build my application. So if I click on a new app, and I click Canva app. So this is then where I can pick essentially where I want to start with, where I want to start with a blank app, where it's a tablet layout, phone layout. So for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to pick a blank phone layout. So this is going to be a leave request system where you can access the app via the phone. So this is, you can see the Power App Studio. This is where I can start building the application, and this is where the phone layout is. So this is where I can start building up my application. So the idea is that I'm going to kind of make this aesthetically pleasing looking as well. So it's going to look nice and flow nice. So I'm just going to start by giving in some icons. Okay. So I'm just going to go down and give it a header and footer. So I'm just going to put a rectangle in. Just a bit slow. Just refresh this page, doesn't seem to be. Working okay, just refresh. So I insert some icons. Just going to scroll down, a rectangle, and I'm just going to drag this across, make it up to the top. So that's going to be my header. I'm going to copy and paste that one and put the footer. Just going to change the colors on these. So over here, you've got the kind of the properties for each item, which you've selected in the system. Then I'm going to insert a image just to kind of tell the users what type of image it is, application. I've just got a nice leave logo. As you can see, it's drag and droppy. It's very easy to use. And there's my image. So I can put that at the center of my home page. And then basically what I need to do is kind of tie this application into a data source. So I've kind of linked this in already to a common data service model. So if I come across here, I can add my data sources in. So this is some of the entities in the common data service. If you've got other connectors to different sources, this is where you could add those in. And you've got a vast amount of different data sources you can use. So I've got this leave request common data service entity. So that's essentially then tied into my application. What the idea of this first page is going to be a kind of a list of existing leave requests in the system. So that's when from there you can drive into the details of that individual leave request, or you could create a new one. So in order for me to put the list in, I'm going to put a gallery control in. And this is where you've got essentially the different types of the look and feel of the gallery. So I'm just going to put a vertical one in. And then I'm just going to drag this down. And you can see it's already pulled in live data previews of the leave requests that already exist in the common data service. So these are actual physical records in the system. So it's quite nice because it gives you a live preview of your current data. So then I'm just going to delete some of these things out of the gallery because I don't need an image for a leave request. So I can click over here and delete that. I'm just going to, excuse me, just going to put in my own data labels essentially from the gallery. So here I can put in a label, and then you can see, I'm just going to drag it in, and you can see it's going to be this name. So that's the field that sits on the common data service. Just going to put another label in, and that's created on, which is a field that I don't want in this view. So I'm just going to put date from. That's the date from of a leave request. Let me just expand this out, make these cells a bit bigger. Let me put another label in, drag that down, and change this then. So this is going to be the date to field. What you'll notice about on the functions, it gives you IntelliSense, so it's really intuitive and helps you along with the code or the low code that you need to build a Power App. And then extend this a little further. Just going to put in another label, which is essentially going to be the status of the leave request. I think what I'll do for the status, I'm going to change essentially the color of the text to be red. So this essentially then is a gallery view or records view of all the leave requests in my common data service model. So you can scroll up and down. So if I kind of at the top, you've got this play button. You can scroll up and down, and they're all the leave requests in the system. And the idea around gallery is that you would click on the arrow and that would take you into the details, the further details of this individual leave request. So let me just rename this screen as my home screen. And what I need to do now is kind of create my details page now. And what I want to do is kind of copy this header and footer. So the idea of how you can duplicate the screen. So essentially at this point, I've got two screens exactly the match, but this one's duplicate. So if I rename this then as SCR details, and then I can get rid of the gallery. So I've got the look and feel from the first page to the second page, exactly the same by duplicating the screens. And essentially then all I want to do is now, based on the record I've selected on the home screen, populate the details in this screen. So again, I'm just going to simply push in some data labels. So I'm going to put this in. What I'm going to do is going to change this text to be request details. So I'm just going to put that in my header, so we know we're on the request details screen. And then I'm just going to put some further labels across in. So the idea around this then, we need to select the record. We need to display the record that was selected in the previous screen. So on this text, essentially then, we need to change this to be gallery one dot selected dot person. So that is pulling in the selected record from the gallery one on the first screen and pulling in the person field. So then if we insert some further labels, bring those down. just exactly do the same concept again. Selected dot date from another label. Gallery 1, just put some more fields in. Selected dot date 2, and then I'm going to put in another label, which is gallery 1 dot selected status. Another label, one last more, which gives me the fields that I want to display in the details. So this is just tying in the first screen and the second screen together. So what I need to do then on this screen is then kind of create an icon to push back to the home screen. So then we can do just simply just put in an icon, and I'll click on back. I'm just going to drag it into my footer. Just going to change the color of the text. And basically we've got this icon now currently just doing nothing. So we need to kind of put a function on the select item at the top and say, look, when you select this, go back to our home page. So we do this by simply putting in any navigate. And gives me the list of pages. So this is going back to this page, and I'm going to give it a transition. So this is kind of almost like a PowerPoint where you've got a transition between the slides. So that's going to push me back then to the gallery. But what I need to go back on the screen home page is to make sure that these arrows point to my newly details page. So I'm just going to change this to be a navigate to the details page. I'm going to put again just an uncover. So at this point now, all I've done is created a simple home page with a list of lead requests, and then essentially if you click on the arrow on that home page, it'll take you to read-only details page for that individual lead request. So if I play that out, so this is the page. If I click on the request, it takes me back. I can go back. Quite simple. So now what I want to do now is kind of enhance this again further by adding I want to create a lead request from this page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, again, just duplicate the screen. Just going to move it down. And then I'm going to rename it SCR new. And I'm going to get rid of the gallery. Move that across. Similar to before, when I'm just going to add a label in. New request. Just going to drag that across. So then at this point, where I've previously been adding in labels, which are kind of read-only, now I want to put inputs into the system. So this is where the users would input record details in. So I'm just going to put in a date picker. So this would be essentially my date from for my leave request. I'm just going to rename this field. And then I want another input then, which would be another date picker, which would be my date to field. Rename this. And then I'm going to add another text input. Essentially, it's for the reason for the leave. And I'm just going to change the properties of that to a multi-line. Rename reason. Just going to put some labels around it because to give the user to understand what the fields mean. So it would be date from. Date to. Then just gonna put another label. Reason. So these are essentially the fields that I want to capture from the leave request. So again, then similar to the back button I did on the detail screen, I want to put in an icon to kind of save that record. So if I click an icon, it is a save icon. So just going to again just drag that down to my footer, change the color. So again, I need to kind of put some on select of this kind of save icon. What do I need to do? So what I need to do is kind of write a little bit of a small function then to kind of push this data back into the common data service to save. So what we use then is simply a function called patch. And again, you can see the IntelliSense is telling me the source data, so I can just tab across. And then I'm just gonna put the defaults in. So this is generally the only kind of little bit of code that I need to write just to kind of get in this record into the CDS. So I can expand that, and then I'm gonna put in, this is where I'm just gonna put in date field records. And I'm gonna be, again, it's just gonna give me the details. So what essentially I'm doing here is these two are saying, using my field date from in my Power App, push it into the date from into the CDS. I'm just going to do the same then for date to. Then I'm going to do the status. At this point, I'm going to hard code in a value called new request. So every request that's generated by the Power App will have a status of new request. And then I'm just going to go in to say the person who created this request, the system's going to get that value for me based on the person who's logged in to the Power App. So as a result, I can use a function called user.fullname. So this is going to push into the person field the person's full name who's using the Power App. And then I'm just going to put in for the name of the record, I'm just going to give it a new request. with an and with some dates from. And then I'm just going to close that off. You just format the text, so it looks a bit slightly different. So this is just a simple on save of this button, push the data that's saved on this form back into the CDS. And I'm just kind of pre-formatting some fields that don't exist on this request with new request and the user full name and the name of the record to be the date and from with a prefix of new request. Also similar to before, on save of this record, I want to navigate back to my home screen. So again, after this function's finished, I'm just going to put in a navigate to a home screen with a screen transition about cover. So you can see it, even though I'm typing some small bit of code here, I'm using the IntelliSense to help me along with it. If I push that back up. So at this point, I've created a gallery screen with a list of all my leave requests. I've got a screen, detail screen, which gives you a read only of existing leave requests. And this screen then allows me then to create a new leave request, which pushes into the CDS. So if I go back to my home page at the moment, I need to tie in the home page to this new request. So if I go to the home page, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in an icon, which essentially is going to be an ad. So, and this essentially then, on select of this ad icon, I want to move to my new request screen. So again, I'm just going to put in a navigate to my new screen with a transition of uncover. I'm keeping the screen transitions the same because I want the look and feel to feel exactly the same throughout the application. So at this point, if I run the application, this is my details full record list. This is my detail screen for that individual. I can go back, and then if I click the plus sign, this is where I can start putting in some details of my leave request. And then click save. And then you'll see my request in this list then. So what is important about this gallery at the moment essentially is that it's a list of every request in the system, not filtered to the specific user. What we want to do then is only show essentially leave requests that are applicable or raised by the user that's logged in. So in that scenario, we essentially need to create a variable and put a filter on this list. So if we go up to an app, I just need to put in a simple variable. Just going to give her the variable a name. And it's going to be essentially the user dot full name. Simple. So this is just getting the full name of the user logged in and pushing it into this variable. And then essentially what I'm going to do on my gallery, I'm going to change the items to be a filter. Where the person equals full name. So then if I just click on run and start, you can see then this gallery then is being updated to only show leave requests that were generated by the user that's logged in. So that's quite a powerful little function that you can do to show only records that are applicable to the user that's logged in. One last thing then, essentially, I want to add to this this gallery then is just basically a refresh icon. So, so imagine someone's created a leave request for this person directly within a model-driven app for the Common Data Service. It's not essentially reflected in the Canvas app at that time, so we can just click a refresh button. So it goes off to the Common Data Service, retrieves all the records and brings them back down. So it's just an icon, which I'm just going to change the color. Then on select, just a simple refresh. And I'm just going to select delete requests. So if I just play that in, there's no records there currently, but what this refresh button is doing is going off the CDS, pulling down the records, and if there was a new leave request for this person logged in, then it'll pull that record in. So this is just a really simple leave request application that I've been running within 20 minutes. It's a Canvas app, and just to show you then the model-driven app of this version. Then if I go to Power Apps webinar. This essentially is the model-driven version of the Canvas app we just created. So this is designed for the phone, very specific. I've got a drag and drop interface. This is the model-driven version of those. So you can see if I click new, all I've got, where we see name earlier, person, date from, date to, reason, status. This is exactly the same, but the model-driven version. And this is the request. So when I was building up the patch earlier with new request, date from, date to, this corresponds to this field. Again, with the user full name, that's the person, and the status, I was saving new request. So then again, that's just a real quick Power Apps 101 of really creating a simple Canvas phone app and using the Common Data Service, and then just showing you the model-driven app of the same CDS. So I'll just pass back to Tom for essentially the last slide.
Thanks for that, Rhoddy. Hopefully you all found that useful. I can see we have had some questions in the question pane, so we'll be coming back to those shortly after completing this webinar. In the meantime, please do check our website for upcoming future events, and that can be found at www.m-hance/events. The next one you'll see is how to enhance your customer experience and improve your operational efficiency, and that's on the 28th of July. And there's a whole suite of other upcoming features and webinars you might be interested in too. So please do take a look at those and register if they're appropriate. Otherwise, thank you very much for your time. We hope you found that useful today. And by all means, if you have any other questions, please do leave them in the question box, or you can email me directly at tom.grange@m-hance.com. Thanks very much for your time and enjoy the rest of your day.